Good evening, everyone. It is just past 7 o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and call our council meeting to order. Mary Jo, can you please call the roll?
Kevin Hansky.
Here.
Sue Broder.
Here.
Meg Ryan Shaki. Here. Stephen Coyle.
Here.
Andy Silver.
Here.
Kathy Pucci. Here. Aaron Perez.
Absent excused. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we will have opening remarks by Sue Gronick.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. This is the last Monday of Pride Month, and I would like to wish the LGBTQ plus community peace and acceptance with their friends, family, colleagues, and other folks that pass through their lives. Please join me in a moment of silence in recognizing this community. Thank you.
Before we get started with our agenda, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to the mayor for our guest speaker tonight.
Thank you, Council President. Back in January, I attended a mayors and managers meeting where the county was there to present the 2024 sexennial reappraisal for our property taxes. So I invited them all the way back in January to come and present to us tonight. And so Mike Chambers from the county is here, and he is going to present the update for our property tax evaluation. So Mike, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it.
And thank you for inviting us. We're happy to be here. I have a quick PowerPoint presentation at the very end. I'll do a couple minutes for you guys.
I'm sorry, Mike, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Council, if under his report, if you click on the PowerPoint, is in board docs.
Okay. So at the end, I'll leave some time for some questions. So I'll kind of go through this little brief, and feel free at the end to ask any questions. So what's happening now is we're beginning the process of what's known as our sexennial reappraisal. What that is I'm mandated by the state of Ohio to come out and do an appraisal, which is known as the sexennial. This is the 6-year appraisal. 3 years ago, we started off with the triennial, which we just got through in 2021. So before I get too far, the basic question is what is an appraisal? A lot of people have a hard time with that. There's basically 2 types. There's a fee appraisal, and there's what is known as mass appraisal. Mass appraisal is mainly for taxation. Key difference is fee appraisals, as you can see, are for mortgage loans, insurance reasons, setting up a property value. With mass appraisal, there's only one reason for that, and that's taxation. Continuing on a little bit, with mass appraisal, you're valuing a universe of properties. Fees appraisal is usually just one property, one home. With mass appraisal, it's measured with statistics, whereas with fee appraisal, it's really a small number of parcels. The biggest difference between mass appraisal and fee appraisal is fee appraisal goes inside your home. Mass appraisal, which is us, the county, will never go inside your home. We pretty much are going to stand in your property and take a look at your statistics from the property. So those are some key differences. In order for us to do a fee appraisal for the entire Cuyahoga County, anywhere from $300 to $500, it would be about $150 million to almost $300 million if we were going to do an individual fee appraisal for every single parcel in Cuyahoga County, which is really, we can't do that. So what we end up doing is what is known as this mass appraisal process. Once again, apology. So we're going to talk about what's going on right now. 3 years ago, we started what was a triennial update. That was what I indicated. It's based on sales data only. It happens 3 years after the main appraisal, which is what we're going to be starting now. We're kind of a little out of sequence. Right now we're starting the beginning of the sexennial. The triennial was a 3-year update. That was based on 100% based on sales data. So a lot of people ask me, where did this start? How come we do this appraisal? Why is there this taxation? Well, it started back in 1825, and the first item that they ever did a taxation, the property tax was for schools. And ever since then, we've been stuck with this method of taxation, and that's why they came up with pretty much this valuation of mass appraisal. So So the triennial, once again, was based on sales data only, sales ratios. It was based on municipality. Within a municipality, it was based on neighborhoods. And sometimes we had some parcels that we couldn't quite fit into neighborhoods. We kind of grouped them on like differences, like characteristics. So we call that neighborhood groupings. This here is something very interesting. When we did our update back in 2021, Cuyahoga County's average was 16%. If you look at this chart now, you'll see some of my partners who are actually going through their triennial update, they're at 43%. That's the average. So what that means is some people's are going up 70, some people might be going up 30. It's a huge uptick. And once again, that is all based on sales data in those counties. They're right now going through the same process we did 3 years ago. The reason they do that is 88 counties, they can't all be on the same cycle. So the state has us on different cycles, and that's what my peers are doing right now. I think we were pretty good 3 years ago. We were kind of right at the beginning of the bubble, and you can see how it's really got up since then. The sexennial appraisal, once again, is every 6 years. That's what we're starting right now. Much greater in scope. As indicated, we'll have approximately 60 appraisers going out within the next couple of weeks, viewing all 480,000 parcels in Cuyahoga County, and this is what we're getting ready to undertake now. What we do at it, it's greater in scope because we have to visualization each parcel. Why is that important? Because we rely on the cities to send us on a monthly basis any kind of permits that were done, any property improvements. A lot of cities are very good at sending that data to us. Sometimes we don't get that data. And this is where we catch it. So we're out there and it says there's been an addition put on and we don't see it, or it is an addition and it's not on our records. This is our opportunity now to correct and find all those adjustments. I'm also looking at purchasing a software that when we do our flyover will help me identify any anomalies as well. But that'll be coming a little bit in the future, so we're still working on that. But this is our opportunity, as we're required by law, by code, to actually do this visual inspection. We do 3 different types of approach. Once again, 3 years ago, it was based sales data only. This is now based on the cost approach. Once again, replacement less depreciation. It does have a comparable sales data approach. And then the one that we use most often is a multiple regression analysis. It kind of takes a combination of all of those. We find through our, once again, these gentlemen have been doing it for almost 30 years. We find that that's probably our best, most accurate data. But we do provide all of our appraisers these 3 information key points, one on sales, one on replacement, and one on multiple regression. And while they're out in the field, they're verifying, they're looking at the cost and the dollars that we have given, and they're determining, is this accurate for that home? So each of these 60 appraisers are out there with the information we gave them. They're going to look and they're going to make adjustments to that based on what they visually see. So that's kind of what we're doing in a nutshell as far as the sexennial. Why is it important, once again, on the data characteristics? Because we had a few times where someone would call up to our hotline and say, I want, my neighbor's taxes are lower than mine. So she would indicate that he had an addition put on. We would look at our record and find out we had no addition. So we sent our appraiser out there, long story short, we let her know, thank you for letting us know, you are valued correctly. Unfortunately, we did not have your neighbor's addition on, we raised him up. So it's very important, and plus it's mandated by the state that we have to do this. So a timeline of events right now, I have issued with me back in January of 2022, I got my mandate from the state of Ohio. It said me as the county auditor, even though my title is the fiscal officer for Cuyahoga County, I wear multiple hats. I'm the auditor, the recorder, the treasurer, I have the auto titles. So this was sent to me saying that I am mandated to do this update. I set, with my team here behind me, we put together a plan. Our plan was approved. And then on July 14th, we got approval of our plan. And this is why we're doing this thing. I'm ordered by the state of Ohio as an agent of the state. So our plan right now is, we got the orders, you can see there. Right now we're at the point where we're in July of 2023, and we're going to continue until April of 2024, at which time we're going to try and put out what we call a notice to the taxpayers. And That'll be their opportunity to do an informal review. And we're going to come back a little bit later on. I'm going to do more events in the communities to try and specifically to the taxpayers, let them know what their options are. The point of this presentation is to let you know that we're going to be in your neighborhood, the difference between what happened 3 years ago, what we're doing now. And then once again, everything we're doing will be for the tax bills that will go out in 2024. So, examples of the supporting documentation, what I'm going to get into more with the taxpayers, is if they come saying I appeal my taxes or my appraised value because my taxes are too high, that's not what the appraisal is about. It's not about your taxes, it's about your valuation. So you have to take the word taxes out of your appeal. You have to have proof. Once again, the good proof would be an appraisal, pictures. You'd have to have comparable sales on my website, which will come up in a second. We have a great website where if you punch in your parcel number, it will show you all the recent sales in your neighborhood. All you got to do is look for a like property. They have to be similar properties, not different property types. But we're trying to give them resources that they can use so when they do appeal, they have the right evidence. Other than saying my taxes are too high, because that's not what the appraised value is about. So a couple of questions that are come up often enough. Once again, why are you revaluing my property? Because the code told me I had to. Will the city be notified? Yes. Within the next few weeks, you'll start getting a schedule saying we're going to be in your city. You'll be going out to your police departments. Will the appraisers be wearing identification? Yes. They'll have a badge and they'll have a marking on their car. I had a recent Board of Revision decision. How will this impact my value? Any BOR opinions or changes are no longer in effect with the reval. The reval will trump all that. So you'll have to then file another appeal. Some other questions we get, once again, if someone's property characteristics are incorrect, will that automatically raise? No, it could lower. I mean, if you had a garage, it depends on the situation. It doesn't necessarily mean if we're in the field and we see something, it'll raise or lower your valuation. How does the informal process work? Once again, you can do it via in person, you can file via email, and also you can come in person or our web portal. Once again, we're going to send notifications directly to them with all these links as well when the time comes. When can I expect a response? Once again, everything we receive will receive a response from us. They will receive notification back. This is the one we get the most often. Why are two homes, same street, same style, different values? Once again, it could be the one house sold a couple times prior. It could be based on, for example, they may have had updated their kitchen. Once again, we don't go inside the homes, but the sales value, they could have had a Board of Revision decision. They could have had homestead exemption. There's many reasons why two homes on the same street have different values. So, and once again, we're here to help. If they have questions, we can reach out for residential. Lou is commercial, Neil is our residential, and that's our community presentation. Contact will be Brian Dunn. So before I hit the next button, is there any questions?
How long do you anticipate that your team will be in Brooklyn doing the appraisals?
Once again, we're going to take months. Do you have an idea? You said region.
The whole county takes about 7 months.
Right.
So here would probably be maybe a week.
Okay.
Any additional questions? I kind of went through that kind of quickly because I know you have more important things to do outside this, but good? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it.
Do you have minutes to approve from the May 22nd regular meeting? Council comments or questions?
Motion to approve.
Second?
To approve the minutes. Kansky.
Yes.
Rhoda.
Yes.
Member Sharkey.
Yes.
Stephen Coyle.
Yes.
Andy Silver.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
At this time, we'll have the first public session. If anyone in the audience has anything to say pertaining to an item on the agenda, please step forward, state your name and address, and you will be recognized. Please remember to keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. We will now have reports of committees, commissions, and boards. Up first is the Finance Committee, Councilman Soldier.
Thank you. The Audit Committee met this past Friday at 1 p.m. with their external auditors for an exit conference on the annual comprehensive financial report, the agreed upon procedures on the landfill, single audit report, and the post audit letter. Thank you to Mr. Raguse and his staff for all their work this past year, which helped make this audit go smoothly and on time, and actually ahead of time. The report will become public once the auditor of state performs their desk review and releases their audit. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Next up, we have the Recreation Board, Councilman Tansey.
Thank you. All soccer for the Suburban Recreational Soccer League is for U9, U11, U13, U15. Registration July 1st through August 1st. Resident fee $60, non-resident $70. Practice begins in August, games in September. Register online at www.brooklynrec.com. Senior Center, June 27th, 12 p.m. Surprise Senior will be here to host Kingdom. Free event, non-money prizes. To register, call 216-635-4222 or visit the Brooklyn Senior Center. Recreation Board meetings for July and August are canceled. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Next up, we have both the Planning Commission and Board of Zoning Appeals, Councilwoman Zuber.
Thank you. The Planning Commission will not have a regularly scheduled meeting in July, but there will be a special meeting later in the month. This date has not been set yet, and there is no Board of Zoning Appeal report. Thank you.
Next up, we have the Domestic Abuse Commission. The Domestic Abuse Commission met earlier this month to write letters and cards to seniors around Ohio in light of Elder Abuse Awareness Day, to bring attention to it and to help some seniors who might live by themselves or not have as much contact with other people. We did have light attendance due to other city meetings that were going on. There is still time if you'd like to participate. You can get your cards or letters to me by July 17th, and I can send them with the rest of the group. You can email me at mryanshockey@brooklynohio.gov to schedule a pickup. And finally tonight we have the Committee of the Whole report. Committee of the Whole met at 6:15 tonight, as we always do before regularly scheduled council meetings. We did go over tonight's agenda, and due to this being the last regularly scheduled meeting before summer recess, we did recommend adoption of the legislation that's under both old and new business. I will go over details before passing the legislation tonight, but we did recommend passing. And the mayor did give an update as well in regards to a couple of items that we've talked about at previous council meetings. The first update was from ODOT on the I-480 exit and entrance ramps in Square City. Per ODOT, construction on the Ridge Road east and westbound, entrance ramps should take place next summer. Entrance ramps should take place. Exit ramps should take place next summer, and that both entrance ramps for Ridge Road should take place the following summer. Tenement entrance ramps have already been repaired. The capital programs group for ODOT is looking at the highway bridges in our city and should have something to Mayor Van Kirk next week regarding sanding and painting underneath the bridges. And the final update was regarding the Recreation Department. They had an in-service training last week, and discussion of the lifeguard shifts was the main topic. Since the meeting, the lifeguard schedule is almost fully staffed. Additionally, the city sponsored 2 lifeguard classes in the past 2 weeks, and we're able to hire 4 additional part-time lifeguards. The incentive plan approved by council at the last meeting will be laid out over the next several days, And between the plan and the new hires that took place over the last 2 weeks, it seems that we are able to fill all the spots. The mayor did thank council for approving the incentive plan at the last meeting. Again, the committee of the whole meetings happen before regularly scheduled council meetings, typically at 6:15. Every once in a while with a heavy agenda, they're moved up to 6 o'clock. All are welcome to attend. We will move on with reports of council. We begin this evening with Councilman Chesky.
Thank you. Good evening. I hate to rock the boat about that construction, but I had multiple residents call me about the disorganized and mismanagement on how things are being handled. What they're complaining about is that the ramp that was closed for nearly a month, and the state and the county couldn't get it together to fix the ramp while it's closed. So now we're going to close it again to fix the ramp. They knew that their ramp was going to be shut down totally, inconvenienced many residents. A lot of residents have called me and they are not happy. And I don't blame them. I agree with them. How do you close down a ramp, the concrete in front of it, and do nothing with the on-ramp? Why didn't they fix the whole ramp? You got to close down anyhow. I don't know if you get their heads together when they put a project together like this, that they would fix everything. So now we're going to close it down again, inconvenience everybody else, and shut down the ramp. So people are going to go all around it again to fix that ramp. This is ridiculous how things are being done. It's just ridiculous. Unacceptable. And I don't think, and I don't know how the rest of the council feels. I would hope to hear from them on this, because you should have some plan and organization when you shut down major ramps or streets to get it all done at once. Not do it twice. Now not only does it hurt the residents, but you have emergency vehicles have to go around. So these things need to stay open. So when you do shut it down, do the entire job. That's all I'm going to hear on the construction. The second thing was, and I'm getting calls on this, and I'm not trying to point the finger at the mayor or John Berger. I've gotten calls from residents. And they walk me right out to the street, all the concrete patching that we're doing, how it's all chipping back up because it's not being cracked. So, the ones that are doing this concrete, the companies, not only do they need to crack seal the area where they're concreting, but they should reach out a little bit farther since they're already there. They got to be blocked up and residents have to go around all the barrels just to concrete the rest of it. Or, and I think our hot box is running right now.
Yes.
Why they have all these barrels and everything out, inconveniencing the residents of town, is to run a hot box out there if they can't crack seal themselves and seal up the streets. Because we are wasting money. We are wasting taxpayers' money. When you concrete something and you patch it like that and don't finish the job, salt, water, ice, and buckles it all and chips it all out, for what purpose what do we accomplish? Go back out there in 2 years and do it all over again because it's all chipping up. You have residents watching this. They're not stupid. They are watching their tax dollars at work and not being done the correct way. Ridge Road, I mentioned it last week. It's chipping up. That road was just put in. Take a look at all the areas that's chipped up. It hasn't been crack sealed. I think the county should be out there crack sealing. I don't know what kind of agreement we have to keep up that street. Maybe John, you can chime in on that. But a lot of times our city doesn't have the manpower to go around and babysit all these streets or crack seal all these streets. But when you do a construction job, we need to finish the job. We need to make sure that it's sealed tight so salt and water doesn't chip up and break up the streets. When residents see this, and they see the mismanagement and the disorganization, this is why they have attitudes about cities, not only Brooklyn, but everywhere else. Oh, it's going to be done any other way. I'm not going to call it. It's just going to get done any other way. I mean, that's just the attitudes. When I go out, I can see in their face how they feel, how things are being done, and they don't like it. So we need to change that. We need to change that atmosphere. We need to change the way we're doing things. And the states and the county, how do we change now? That's ridiculous with that army. If somebody was to take that and get that on TV, that would really be good. Shut down a major on-ramp and do nothing. Boggles my mind. So, I'd like to hear from council what they think about shutting down a major on-ramp and not finishing the job. Residents don't like it. I can tell you that, because I visited multiple ones this week. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Next up, we have Councilwoman Brody.
Thank you. 2 quick notes. The first one is I would like to thank the Recreation Department for the summer planned activities. It seems like we are literally off to a full swing of summer fun. And thank you to everyone who's helping with the planning. And the second is I would just like to thank the Charter Review Commission, and I look forward to their report in July. That means there will be an additional council meeting where we'll be able to see the proposed changes, and I look forward to those. And Councilman Tansky, just since I'm sitting next to you and I feel like you've called twice on a response, I guess I'm more patient. I understand. Just today I was in Columbus and needed to get on Interstate 670 and the entrance ramp was closed because there's also construction in Columbus, like there is everywhere in Ohio in the summer. So I guess I understand that living near highways means that our highways are going to have to be repaired, and with so many roads being owned by different entities and being the responsibilities of different entities, I am just a more patient person, I guess. So that's my response to that, and that concludes my report.
Thank you. Next up, Councilman Boyle.
Thank you. Good evening. First, I'd like to answer Councilman Tansky's request. I am in agreement that the on-ramp construction could have been probably handled better, more efficient. More thoughts on that at the moment. Just a reminder to continue checking your city calendar and our newsletter, as there are many great events happening this summer. I want to call special attention to Council's informal meeting at Park Park tomorrow night from 6 to 7. There is no agenda, but it's an opportunity for all to meet with your at-large council persons. These meetings came from the feedback that many residents have expressed that they only ever see their representatives during election season. If you can't make it tomorrow, there are 2 more dates scheduled later this summer. First one is Saturday, July 15th from 11 to noon at Brock Park, and then Wednesday, July 26th from 6 to 7 at night in Memorial Park, the lower pavilion. We hope to see you there. And then lastly, I'd like to wish everyone a happy, safe, and enjoyable summer. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Next up, Councilman Stelter.
Thank you. We'll take care of Kevin first. He and I definitely agree on the same thing. There's on some of these projects, there's got to be more better coordination, just to make life easier. It's bad enough as it is at times. With the LED streetlight conversion, most of the streets south of Biddulph across from the high school have been completed. Bentwood, Forstead, Saybrook, and Glen Daniels, as of today, still need to be done. I don't know how that one area, Miss Glen Daniel, 2 light poles, that's a big hit. Rodone has been done for the entire length from Memphis to Saybrook. Work has been going on in other areas as well. The entire job by First Energy that was divided into 8 jobs. By them, 2 of the 8 jobs have been closed out, and a credit of $7,308 has been issued back to the city. The check should arrive in approximately 2 weeks. As they close out the remaining work requests, they will calculate further credits and send the money back to the city. The credit is from where fixtures for a period of time were to have been converted to LED and were not per written agreement at no cost. By the time we get back to September, these council chambers, I would hope that we finally should be done with this. You still have time to enter the Keep Brooklyn Beautiful Home Gardening Contest. There'll be 2 sessions. The first session deadline is this Friday, June 30th at 4:30. The second session photos are due by July 31st at 4:30. The top 3 gardens in each session will win bragging rights via a yard sign and also on social media. To enter, send an email with your home garden pictures, your name, and your address to homegardencontest@brooklynohio.gov. The next fresh fruit and produce giveaway at St. Elias will be tomorrow, Tuesday, June 21st, starting at 3:30 p.m. But please don't get there 1 or 2 hours ahead of time. The distributions take place on the 4th Tuesday of each month through the summer. For July, it is going to be the 25th, and for August, it is going to be the 22nd. Cleanup dates for Keep Brooklyn Beautiful are up on the volunteer.kab.org website. Look for Brooklyn, you should be able to find us. There are a number of events, and they're also good for community service hours. Have a fun and safe summer. On the side streets or residential streets, please slow down, take your time. If you have cars parked on the side you're driving, you have oncoming traffic, wait for them to pass. You probably could squeeze by, but you never know when somebody might open the door, or just worse yet, a child with nowhere in the world pops out from behind the car. So just please slow down. Please, my report.
Thank you. Next up, we have Councilwoman Fuji.
Thank you. Good evening. Regarding the construction, I know that we're all frustrated with it, and I too wish that there was better coordination. I think the issue with this is the Ridge Road is a county project, the ramps are a state project, but not just that they're separate entities, but these projects are in the pipeline literally years in advance. And sometimes they actually even change where they are on the priority list depending on what else is going on. And then the Ridge Road project was actually delayed because of COVID, because when they were going to take the traffic counts to see the volume of traffic, they did not believe it was in our best interest to do it at that time because there weren't enough people back to work yet. So I'm just as frustrated with everybody else, and I know that some residents are more impacted than others. I know Tiedemann Road has been impacted because people, one, trying to avoid the Ridge Road entrance and exits, but also those no truck signs, a lot of the truck traffic has been now diverted onto Tiedemann. So, like Councilwoman Brodick said, it's, we're all frustrated. This is construction season. I wish there was more we could do, but I really don't think there's anything we can do. I too would like to thank the Charter Review Commission for all their work. They've been meeting for months and working very diligently. So as Councilwoman Brodick mentioned, we will be having some special meetings, because once we get their report, then all their recommendations come to council. So if you are interested, stay tuned. I would like to thank Mr. Verba for his updates on local construction. Again, I know that residents who have construction on these streets are frustrated, but we need to maintain and improve our roads, and there's no other way to do it. And unfortunately, the residents on those particular streets are definitely inconvenienced. We try and have these projects done as expeditiously as possible, but I appreciate Mr. Verba's updates because I think they get calls from residents. Regarding the 4th of July, first I wish everyone a happy and safe holiday. And I would ask residents, last year we did enact legislation so that residents are able to legally shoot off the home fireworks. But please be respectful of your neighbors and observe the time. I think, is it 11 o'clock? So it's 11 o'clock. I know last year there were certain areas where people kept blowing off the fireworks, well into the early morning hours. So please be respectful of your neighbors. I also am on the Finance Committee and the Audit Committee, and I did participate in the post-audit meeting last week. And just to reiterate, as Councilman Salters mentioned, that is a public record, but it's not just public now. It has to be released by the auditor, and we do post everything on our website. And I would like to once again thank Director Raguse and his staff in the finance department. They work very hard and they're very diligent when it comes to finances, which makes our job easier, and I sincerely appreciate that. I'd like to thank Mr. Chambers for coming this evening to explain the reappraisal process. I know to a lot of people this is very confusing, and he's right that it seems like we just came off the cycle that they started 3 years ago, but for them it's like an ongoing process. They just keep rotating from triennial to the sexennial. So hopefully that information was beneficial to residents. And last week I attended the school board meeting, and Mayor Van Kirk gave a brief overview of what's going on in the city. And I'd like to thank him. I think it was very beneficial, and I think it strengthens the relationship between the city and the schools. So thank you, Mayor, for taking the time to do that. I'd also like to thank the residents who regularly come to our council meetings, and also those residents who keep up with us through digital means. I think it's a good thing to be involved with your city and to keep informed. So thank you for that. We appreciate it. And finally, I also would like to mention, when you're driving, please slow down. All our kids are out and about in the summer, and they're not always aware. And they move very quickly, sometimes without thinking. So please slow down and keep all of our children and pedestrians and cyclists safe. Thank you. That completes my report.
Thank you. Councilman Tansky, to answer your question, I'm going to kind of piggyback off of what Ms. Pucci said. And I think construction is always irritating to see. It's always at the summertime, and we want to be relaxed and, not have to think about it, but it's very difficult when it's multiple different entities who don't always communicate in charge of different projects. And I remember when we've talked about it in the past, former Mayor Gallagher had brought up the only real thing the city can do is try and pull projects up sometimes when streets are that bad and it's by the state or the county, or as Mayor Van Kirk's been doing, try and get information about the ramps going, the projects going on and everything. But I think it's something that we have to all just make sure we're taking extra time when we have to go places and understand that construction is annoying, but it's something that we have to deal with. We all like those smooth roads and smooth highway ramps that I know you're advocating so hard for. So I hope that answers a little bit of your question. I just want to give a huge shout out to Eric and Liz Dregney and the Brooklyn Recreation Center for their hard work. Yesterday we had a big band blowout event here at Memorial Park. It was an all-day event from noon to about 8:15, and it wrapped up just in time for the storm to come in. And it was a great event with live music, and both local and some musicians traveling as far as from Dublin, Ohio, outside of Columbus. There was food from the Sliman's food truck, and there were even some swing dance performers. It was a really good time. I had fun catching up with some neighbors and some friends, meeting some new friends, and enjoying the sunshine. So thank you to all of those that were involved in planning this great event. On July 30th, from 3 p.m. till 9 p.m., there will be another all-day concert at Memorial Park, this one with bands from the decades, and I believe additional food trucks as well. Andy mentioned that Keep Brooklyn Beautiful will be busy this summer with the home garden contest as well as some community cleanups. Just to give you guys those dates, July 23rd, we'll be meeting at Dave's Supermarket at Bridge and Denison. That is Brooklyn on one side of Ridge Road over there, so we focus on that a little bit and along the railroad track safely, but it does get a little messy down there. August 12th, we'll be meeting at the former Gold Circle on Memphis Avenue to pick up around our entryway into the city from Lindale into Brooklyn. We do have a couple of community groups already signed up for that event, but we always welcome volunteers. And finally, on Sunday, August 27th, we'll be meeting at the Fifth Third Bank at Tiedemann Road. And again, you can register at volunteer.kab.org. And finally, I do want to mention that there is a very important special election on the ballot on August 8th. This is around the entire state of Ohio, and it is when we are in recess, so I wanted to make sure to get the information out there. There is one single issue on the ballot, which would make it more difficult for citizen-led initiatives to change the state constitution in Ohio. In addition to making it harder for citizen-led initiatives to get on the ballot, it would also increase the percentage of voters needed to make any change from the current, which is a simple majority of 50% plus one vote, to the 60% voter approval. Every living past Ohio governor has come out against state issue 1, including Republicans Bob Taft and John Kasich, and Democrats Dick Celeste and Ted Strickland. So early voting starts on July 11th, and election day is August 8th from 6:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. It's your regular polling location. Please educate yourself on this issue and make a plan to vote on or before August 8th. I hope everybody has a wonderful summer, and I look forward to seeing you at one of the many events that were mentioned here tonight around the summer before we come back here in September. And I'm going to turn it over to Mayor Becker.
Thank you, Council President. Since I took office in January, I've done my best to communicate with staff, with residents of expectations, concerns, ideas, events, all taking place in Brooklyn. I spent a great deal of time prior to each council meeting to ensure that I very clearly communicate with council any updates, concerns, legislation, other information pertaining to Brooklyn. And in these meetings, I then try to summarize that information in a report that's beneficial to residents. I have by no means perfected the art of communication. I don't think anyone has, but I do endeavor to get better at that each day. The presentation I'm about to give to the residents is to better communicate information, and this particular one is regarding staffing within our police department. So we're going to talk a little about that. Just to give you a little bit of brief history, this staffing information has been discussed very thoroughly internally with my administration. This information was also given to council. No objections were heard from council moving forward with this plan. When it comes to staffing, and really any department, governments tend to be reactionary. Where there's a shortage or there's a situation that comes up and the government tends to react. And largely that's due to financial reasons, but there's others as well. This plan that I'm going to present tonight takes the opposite approach, where it is a proactive approach to ensure that this department, the police department we're talking about tonight, is adequately staffed now and also in the future. I'm in the process right now of meeting with other department heads and individuals in the departments doing similar studies underway, and those should be completed here in the coming months. So, when it comes to the police department, our current staffing, we currently have 35 budgeted positions. There are 33 of those positions that are currently filled. We had 2 retirements earlier this year, one in January, one in March. We will have another one that will retire later on this year, in the fall of this year. Additionally, we have 7 police officers who are in something called the DROP program. And they're eligible to retire anytime. I'm going to very quickly run through what the DROP program is, because most people probably don't have an understanding of that. DROP simply stands for Deferred Retirement Option Plan. So an employee is eligible to enter DROP, and they retire in the eyes of the pension system, but they still continue to work for the city, and they can work for the city for up to 8 years. Rather than these additional years of service being included in their future benefit, the employee's benefit is locked at the time of entering this program. The employee then will start collecting, I put that in quotes, their monthly benefit, and that amount is actually placed in a separate DROP account with the pension, with that employee's name on it. The 19% that the city pays into the employee's pension continues to go to the pension, and that strengthens the pension fund, which is one of the main reasons why the state initiated this program. The employee will continue paying their 12.25% every pay into the pension system, and again, that money is placed into their DROP account. The DROP program is maxed out after 8 years, and the employees must retire at that time. If they, for some reason, choose not to, they would forfeit their entire DROP account and would resort back to the original system, which means that no one does this, that the employees retire at that time. At their true retirement date, they're then eligible to start drawing their monthly benefit and any portion of their DROP account. So again, we have 7 officers that are currently in this program. If all 7 stake the balance of their DROP once employee has entered the drop program, they can retire at any time. They just are maxed out after 8 years. In the police department, we have 7 that are currently in the drop program. And this is the breakdown of when those officers will meet their max of 8 years. We have 1 that will be done in less than 2 years. You can see the breakdown there. 1 in less than 4, our chief less than 4.5, the patrol officer less than 5, 2 sergeants less than 5.5, and 1 more that just entered. And once they're in that drop program, they must retire at the end of the 8th year. So kind of walking through a timeline, if we were not to hire any additional staffing, within the next 5 months, we will lose 1 additional sergeant, what you just mentioned, we'll be down to 32. Within the next 5 years, we will lose 2 patrol officers, a detective, and our chief, we're down to 28. Within the next 8 years, we will lose 2 more sergeants and 1 additional patrol officer, that will put us to 25. And then within the next 5 years, there are 3 additional officers that are eligible to enter the drop program and can retire at any time. None of these retirements account for additional losses due to unforeseen circumstances. We have an officer that transfers to another city, an officer that's forced to retire because of injury. Those obviously are unforeseen circumstances. This obviously does not take that into account. So based upon these numbers, it is very likely that the city of Brooklyn will need to replace up to 1/3 of our department in the next 5 to 8 years. Recruiting has become very challenging here in Northeast Ohio, around the country. The Civil Service Commission has given 2 tests within the last 8 months in the city. The first test only had 6 applicants, and of that, only 4 of those applicants passed the test. The second test had 22 applicants, and only 12 passed the test, and then only 8 completed their follow-up questionnaire. It's becoming more and more difficult, not only here in the city of Brooklyn, but also in this region and around the country. There's a couple of articles here. This one from ABC News. It talks about how they're facing what they call a vicious cycle of retirements, resignations, and fewer hires. There's another one here from IdeaStream that talks about the difficulties that the Northeast Ohio departments are having. And then this last one talks about the fact that when departments are understaffed, it leads to low officer morale. And this is also true if there's just a perception of that within the agency. And so recruiting is a challenge. Additionally, on top of that, while hiring officers presents its own set of challenges, due to our proximity to Cleveland, we continue to see an increase in our calls for service, or our CFS. So this is a chart of the calls for service over the last 10 years. And you'll see that red line there showing back from 2013 up to our latest number in 2022. And you can see that those numbers continue to steadily increase as the years go by. So a little over 22,000 there in 2013, and then a little over 30,000 just last year. So those calls for service continue to increase. Additionally, everyone is aware of the growing scrutiny around police officers around the nation. As a result of that, officers are spending more time on calls than they have in the past. Since current officers are facing these challenges and the additional calls for service, it leaves less time for patrol. It leaves less time to build relationships within the community, and it also leaves less time to train. And all of these are very key components to a successful department. Due to these challenges and the forthcoming retirements we talked about, overtime will continue to rise in the department without some sort of corrective action. Hiring officers obviously takes time and, of course, money to do that. The civil service test was given more than 2 months ago for the 2 officers that retired. The hiring process for that is still ongoing. Many recruits, if they do not come from another department, they still have to go through the academy. With that required academy training, it will be likely more than a year before those new recruits will have their training at the academy, then have their Brooklyn training, and when they're able to be on the streets on their own here in the city. So it's a very time-consuming process to get a new recruit on the streets. So it's easy to come up with problems and talk about problems and more the solutions. Well, in meeting with Chief Melke and his team, we will continue to analyze the call for service data in order to make sure that the staffing is appropriate at all of the shifts. The goal will be to hire 7 additional officers based from the current civil service list or through something called lateral transfers that have been authorized by the Civil Service Commission. A lateral transfer simply allows an officer to be hired from another department without going through the normal testing process through the civil service test. Hiring 3 officers this year will allow us to maintain our staffing levels of 35 for 2023. Hiring an additional 4 officers in the near future will allow them to be trained and on the street. That will, of course, improve our department now, but also will prepare for the coming retirements that I talked about just a second ago. So this forward thinking allows Brooklyn to ensure that we have proper staffing, permits council administration to be able to reassess staffing annually from a position of strength, being proactive, rather than from a position of reaction, which unfortunately tends to be the case a lot of times in governments. Now is the time to hire additional staffing. We are not the only department that is facing these issues. Departments all over Northeast Ohio are facing the exact same issues that we are facing. Again, governments tend to be reactionary. These additional hires will allow Brooklyn to be proactive, and of course this is a key issue for this city. So what are the costs? Well, let's run through these very, very quickly. Because we did have 2 officers that retired earlier this year, we have not expended approximately $85,000 in funds. And so that's already budgeted for 2023 for these 2 officers. So these savings will permit us to replace those 2, and also the one that will be retiring later on this year, be able to potentially hire all 3 of them as soon as possible without adjusting the 2023 budget to get us back up to the 2023 budget numbers of 35. When it comes to additional staffing, I know this is a little bit difficult maybe to read, but as you take a look here, this is the breakdown for 4 years of hiring an additional officer. And a lot of times people just tend to look at that salary, but that's just a small portion of actually what it costs. So the first year, to hire 1 officer, if they happen to be single, will be just over $86,000. And over the 4 years as that goes up, that will be $386,000 in change over 4 years. If that officer happens to be married, you just add $15,000 per year for that officer for a total of a little over $440,000 for that officer. This does not take into account overtime, future increases, etc. So this is just a static number. The city has already applied for the COPS grant. Lieutenant Knapp and Chief Melke partnered and filed that several months back with the federal government. If that is awarded, it will provide up to 75% of the cost of an additional officer. The grant will cover officers hired only above the staffing numbers, which is above the 35, which would be the 4 additional that we were just talking about. The maximum grant payout is $125,000 per officer distributed over the next 3 years. The city would then be responsible for maintaining that officer's employment for at least 1 additional year beyond the 3 years of grant coverage. So if we were to hire 1 through 4 officers, you'll see the cost of the city there broken down. $386,000 is times 2, times 3, times 4. And then if we were to be awarded the COPS grant, you can see those numbers, the grant numbers there for over the next 4 years. And the overage, the cost of the city. So if we were to receive the COPS grant and council were to approve the hiring of 4 officers, it would cost the city over 4 years just a little over $1 million to hire that additional staffing in the police department. Again, the 3 hires is already included in the budget. That would just allow us to maintain budget levels for this year. The additional cost would be for the additional officers, and of course, these are single numbers for a single officer. If they had a family and were married, that would be $15,000 per year additional. So here's the plan. The plan is to hire, if council's approval for 2024, to hire a total of 7 officers. 3 hires, we will hire those this year as long as we get the appropriate candidates through the process for 2023. And then moving forward to hire those 4 additional officers to be better prepared for both the current and the future challenges that the department is facing. With the lengthy process for hiring officers, it's likely, as I just mentioned, that those would be hired in 2024. And these hires, of course, will be part of the 2024 budget process that will take place with council and the administration this fall. Again, this plan ensures that Brooklyn is working from a position of strength, a proactive position of strength, as opposed to being reactionary. So in review, based upon the numbers, it's likely that Brooklyn will need to replace up to 1/3 of our department in the next 5 to 8 years. Recruiting is becoming more and more difficult around the region, around the country. We have a continued increase in call for services. Hire 3 officers this year. The budget for their hiring of 4 additional officers in 2024. The city's already applied for a COPS grant, which will provide funding to help offset the cost of those things. We have an active civil service list to choose from. We also have the authority from civil service to use lateral transfers for these hires. And again, this is a proactive step that will make sure that the staffing is adequately staffed. I know that's a lot of information, but I wanted residents to be able to see that and to understand the importance of the safety forces, what it costs, and the difficulty that the police department does have in hiring staffing. When you hire any employee, in particular in the safety forces, it's a 20 to 25 year commitment. And so the process is long, it's arduous, but it's well worth it to ensure that we're hiring quality candidates for the safety of our city. And so that is the plan that we're working through right now. We've taken quite a bit of time to get to this point, and so that'll be how we're moving forward. I want to appreciate council's support as well on this for the 2024 budget. A couple of items before I finish with my report, just to go over some of the other items I had. We'll have a very busy summer and fall this year here in the city of Brooklyn. The remaining gateway signs, we approved the contract last week for those, and those will be completed and up in the city by the end of the summer or into the fall. By the end of October, they should be done. Additionally, the library construction is slated to begin very soon. The demolition across the street is nearly complete. We'll have a groundbreaking ceremony on July the 13th. And right now, the completion date for that library is the summer or fall of next year. And then lastly, the Veterans Memorial Park master plan is nearing its completion. This will be reviewed again with council at the budget work session. This will be a phased approach to updating Veterans Memorial Park, but I think the residents will be very pleased once we get this process rolling. It's a 3-phased approach that we hope to, if council approves, start next year. Road construction, Mr. Tansky alluded to this a little bit ago. When it comes to road construction, I do appreciate Mrs. Gregg's approach. Patience is the key here. No one likes road construction, I understand that. When it comes to the Ridge Road project and the shutting down the ramps, that's a county project. The ODOT ramps are a state project. ODOT actually moved up the time to fix those ramps based upon the city's request to move up the time to fix those ramps. And so, as Mrs. Pucci mentioned, these are years in the process of planning. The Brook Park Road construction process was planned, the planning started approximately 10 years ago. And so this takes a long time to get to where we are today. It is a pain, I understand that. I drove through that corridor today. But patience is the key. We have over $2 million that the city is expending this year in roads. And drive around Cuyahoga County. Brooklyn has some of the best roads in the county, and we have to continue to maintain them. As far as the crack sealing on the new concrete, that will be done. Once the concrete is finished, it will come back in and crack seal the concrete that they just laid. Another item that's kind of exciting, we haven't talked a ton about it as of yet, but council approved in the budget last year engineering for a potential Memphis road diet. And here on Memphis Road, we kind of have this 2-lane road, 4-lane road going each way. Maybe it's 4 lanes, maybe it's 2 lanes. And this Memphis road diet, if we go through all the process and everything engineers correctly, will actually allow for it to be made into a 2-lane road going each way with a 3rd lane that'll be a left-hand turn lane only. We have a lot of rear-end accidents that happen on this road. There was a study that was done back in 2020 by GPD that talked about this. There were 111 accidents, I believe, in their time that they did the study of on Memphis, and most of them were rear-end accidents where people were trying to turn left, and the person ran in the back of them because they didn't know they were turning left. We also have a lot of side swipes on Memphis Road. And so a diet, again, would convert that to 3 lanes, one going one direction, the second going the other direction, and then the turn lane as well. It would also accommodate for a bike lane. And this came out of our master plan that called for the city's more connectivity to bike trails throughout the region. There's still a very long way to go in this project. This is a good step. Last year, I actually had some concerns about the project due to some potential safety concerns, and we are addressing those right now with our safety forces as well as our engineer moving forward. So that'll be the engineering for that will take place this summer. Veterans Memorial Plaza is already under construction. Across the way, grade line has already started to put in the trail for the sidewalks. and started to mark out the settings for the new monument. The house that was next door that the city purchased on South Parkside is almost completely demolished and will be gone within the next couple of days. And we anticipate that new plaza being opened up by the end of the summer or into the fall months. And of course, as I already mentioned, we look forward to hiring some additional police personnel this summer as well. A couple of events. There is a community gathering that will take place right here at the City Center Plaza this coming Thursday, June 29th at 6:30 p.m. So the mayor typically has these meetings throughout the summer, and so there will be no exception this year. The first one will take place here right outside these doors on June 29th at 6:30 p.m. The Senior Center will be hosting a cookout on July the 6th, 11:30 a.m. So residents are welcome to come out. There's a small cost for that. Also, the Coffee with the Mayor will take place on Friday, July 14th at 9 a.m. in the Senior Center. The City Center Open House will take place on Saturday, July the 22nd from 9 a.m. to noon. Right here in this new building, would encourage residents to come out, take a tour of the new facility. It is definitely a building to be proud of. We want to allow residents to come and see what their tax dollars have built. Community cleanups, I know that the council president mentioned these. The next one will take place at Dave's Super, or one of them will take place at Dave's Supermarket on Sunday, July 23rd from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. And then another community gathering at Marquardt Park on Thursday, July 27th at 6:30. Music to the Decades, the council president mentioned this as well, will take place on Sunday, June 30th from 3 to 9 in Veterans Memorial Pavilion. Another community gathering will take place at Brock Memorial Playground on Thursday, August the 17th. And then lastly, in the Senior Center, they're having a Guardians watch party on Thursday, August 27th at 1 p.m. So I know that's a lot of information, but this is the last meeting. We have a lot of things going on in the city. So I encourage residents to go back and rewatch this or to take a look at this PowerPoint presentation. And feel free to contact me with any questions. And with that, I'll stop talking.
Thank you for all of those updates and getting all those dates out there to the residents. Next up, we have Director's Report, Finance Director Raguse.
2 items for me tonight. I promise I will not be as long as the mayor. The first item, a brief review of the general fund financial report for May. Overall revenues are 52% of the estimated amount, 28% more than prior year due to an increase in income tax revenue and interest revenue. Of the increase related to income tax revenue, majority of that increase is due to one-time revenue received this year that we did not receive last year, as well as a large employer withholding gain of $555,000. On the commitment side, overall commitments are 49% of the budget amount and 2% less as compared to May of 2022. For income tax revenue that we received from RETA in June, a total distribution of $1.59 million is $113,000 more than last June. Excluding one-time revenue received, it's actually $9,000 less than June of last year. Withholding accounts for a loss of $92,000, whereas net profit and original taxes account for a gain of $83,000. And the second item for me, and I know a few of you have mentioned that our audit is complete, pending a desk review by the Auditor State's Office. The audit contained no reports, no comments or citations, and therefore the city will be receiving the Auditor State Award with distinction for the 4th time in the last 5 months. It's very good for the city, obviously, something to be proud of. And that concludes my report. Thank you. Unless there's any questions from City Council.
I just have one quick question. On the large employer withholding, is that one employer?
No, those are several. One newer employer and some of our larger employer factors that we've done.
Next on our agenda, we have notifications. There was a $150,000 CDBG grant awarded for the pool roof renovation. I believe the mayor said that it should be taking place later next month. The end of June. And the indoor pool will remain open during that renovation. Under old legislation tonight, we have Resolution 2023-15. This is on 3rd reading and up for adoption, adopting the tax budget for the fiscal year 2024. And this legislation is our official tax budget, which is at the same 5.9 mils. The Director Raguse gave a full report on this legislation at the May 22nd meeting. Any comments or questions? Move to adopt.
Second.
To adopt. Evan Tansky?
Yes.
Sue Grodick?
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki.
Yes.
Stephen Coyle.
Yes.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Ordinance 2023-12 is on second reading, but due to it being the last meeting before summer recess, administration is looking for us to pass through suspension of the rules. Establishing a position of part-time clerk, police records coordinator, and this individual would assist in the mayor's court and the police department on a part-time basis. The administration is requesting this to be passed, as I said, because it's the last meeting before summer recess. Any comments or questions?
Introduced by all, suspend the rules.
Second?
To suspend the rules, Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Sue Broden.
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki.
Yes.
Stephen Coyle.
Yes.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
To adopt, Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Sue Broden.
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki.
Yes.
Stephen Coyle.
Yes.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Under new business night, we have resolution 2023-17. This is on first reading, but due to timing, administration is looking for us to request through, adopt through suspension of the rules. Amending resolution 2023-14, approving of a construction budget and authorizing execution of guaranteed maximum price amendments for the city center project and declaring an emergency. This is an increase of $40,002 for an updated total of $25,211,353. There are 9 change orders in tonight's resolution, and as has been the case since the beginning of the changes with this project, there are some projects that the city is still going back and forth with the different entities that we're working with to see who's responsible for the changes. So some of this money the city will get back, but due to having to pay the workers, we are looking to pass this, and then they're still working on the back end. Any comments or questions?
Introduced by all, suspend the rules.
Second.
To suspend the rules, Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Sue Broden.
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki.
Yes.
Stephen Coyle.
Yes.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
To adopt, Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Sue Broden.
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki.
Yes.
Stephen Coyle.
Yes.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
At this time, we will have the second public session. If anyone in the audience has anything to say for the good and welfare of the city of Brooklyn, please step forward, state your name and address, and you will be recognized. Please remember to keep your comments to 5 minutes or less.
Rob Slattery, 6600 Cyrus Drive. I was just going to get up and talk about the fire truck today. I'm in the service department quite a bit, dropping things off in the dumpster they have. And the ladder truck that the city spent over $100,000 on getting rehabbed or overhauled, whatever the technical repairs were. It was back in service and it was out of service immediately. It's been sitting up there in the fenced-in yard for more than 2 weeks now. When are we going to take it serious enough to send that out to proper mechanics? And this is not slamming on the service project mechanics. I think they do a great job, but they got more than enough on their plate. And you guys keep adding to it with all the work and the extra details on 480. We're relying on Plan B for that fire truck and mutual aid. We have our own $1 million ladder truck. It is constantly broken down. We just spent $100,000 to fix it, now we have another problem. Send it out and get it fixed and get it back on the road. We brought up the staffing about the fire department not having enough to drive the ladder truck. You guys finally hired 3 firefighters. Now we have somebody who can possibly drive that thing, and now it's not available. So I think that needs to be addressed. But I am kind of surprised about the hiring. I have come to council meetings pretty much every 2 weeks for the last 5 years and complained about staffing in the police and fire departments. And most of you, discounting Councilman Cook, he wasn't here, I got all the same looks I'm getting right now. Like I was causing problems and it was all budget. What is different right now besides this being an election year that you guys are finally doing this? It kind of seems very self-serving that all of a sudden now you have this illuminated problem and you're going to hire 7 people and you're hiring all these hirings. I've been complaining about this for years and nothing's been done. I'm glad it's finally happening, but it should take an election. You should listen to the voters.
Ardito, 7439 Outlook Avenue. I walked in the park over the weekend, and you guys had mentioned the hot box, whatever is working. The park is on the agenda yet to be hit the crack sealed, because they are not. I was dropping paper off at the school recycling bins, and evidently there's still a lot of illiterate people. There's cardboard boxes in there all the time. And tonight was the winner. A clear trash bag full of leaves. The other big thing is the big government with all the roads and everything. They're only going to talk to each other only so good no matter what. You stay on best you can. That's all that's happening, because big government also know they pass a bill, and there's all kinds of other stuff slipped in that has no right to be slipped into the bill, but bingo, we get it in the end. Bike lanes, I brought this up again, I'm for them. Let's start charging the bicyclists for plates to pay for all this. It's out of our budget. We're losing lanes in the car, and traffic at times is more congested. And then electric cars are still cramming this down their throat. They're not taking that away. But also, you're now hearing about hydrogen. It is making leaps also. There's a bus, I forget where, but in Ohio, there's a bus system that has all hydrogen buses. So yeah, electric's fine, but on the news the other day, was it California or Texas? Please don't run your air conditioning. We're having brownouts and everything, because bingo, we don't have the power to supply it all. I don't remember if I've said this before, but it's a company I work for. We export overseas. I had a couple customers visit for Germany. And they're in worse shape than us because they shut down all their nuclear plants. And our electric bills are going up, are nickel and dime to what Germany's paying. So we're still the greatest country in the world, but yeah, we have to stay on top of them. Otherwise, everybody's going to get what they want in the big business, and the little guy's going to get bazinged. Especially when you're retired, not everybody knows it. I didn't know it. If you're on any high-priced drugs or medications, they have what's called a donut hole. And I don't totally understand it, but thank God I'm not on any expensive drugs. Because if you are, the donut hole sort of come back and gets you. You know, the only insurance, whatever, only pays so much, and then bazinga, it's up to you. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Clark, 10407. I watched YouTube videos of the city council meetings last month. They left me with my head scratching my head about the grass cutting in CEI. Councilman Tansky said, tell them to start cutting grass. This is a $1 billion business. Councilwoman Pucci said, I don't think the citizens of Brooklyn should be subsidizing their Saturdays. The citizens of this city have spent good money to make the exit ramp more pleasing for incoming businesses and citizens. But if you head north on Tiedemann, you come across the Plain Dealer building with an overgrown weeds and grass in their fenced-in area. If you head south, you hit a $1 billion business, Starbucks, with trash along their property and that waterway there that travels. And why are they not putting out the money to clean up that area? Why are the citizens? Cracker Barrel, great business. I've seen their employees out there with trash bins picking up trash. I don't want to make it, sorry. Why is it citizens of Brooklyn and Councilwoman Meg Ryan Shockey to spend their Saturdays cleaning up areas that are bringing in money? I'm not saying the community service is a bad thing to start the youth off knowing how to give back to the community, but I think time and effort should be spent on other properties around the cities and parks, not making a $1 billion company brick and mortar business look better. And second, there's a property across the street from me that a grass service keeps in cutting. It is the city property's grass. Why is the city not cutting it, and why is a outside company cutting it? And lastly, I would like to thank the Brooklyn Police Department and Animal Control for the quick response and swift action to this past weekend around my neighborhood. Thank you.
I wasn't planning on talking tonight. Patrick Sweeney, 8919 Torrance Avenue. And Mr. Ardito did bring up a good point there. Maybe some bicyclists, I do ride, should register their bikes and pay for some of this stuff. I don't agree with the bike lanes on the road. Cars and bikes don't mix. And I don't do it, I stick to the trails. But, and, you know, I don't know if you've ever seen what they've done to Lake Road and Lakewood, but they put bike lanes on there, and now you've got joggers using them. So they can run on the sidewalk, but now they're using this bike trail that they added. So it's just my 10 cents worth there. And secondly, I ordered a chicken and an egg from Amazon. I'll let you guys know at the next meeting what comes first.
Cindy Whitey, 4164 Spring Crest Drive. Good evening. In November, December of 2022, I was appointed by Councilwoman Kathy Pucci to serve on the Charter Review Committee. Shortly thereafter, at one of our first committee meetings, I was voted by the other members of the committee to serve as chairperson. I welcome the opportunity, however, at times it has not always been an easy task. However, if asked to do it all over again, I would gladly step up to the plate. Although our meetings began a few months later than in past years of the Charter Committee, I had made a recommendation at the start that each member bring at least 3 suggestions or recommendations that pertain to any section of the Charter that they would like to change, modify, add, delete, etc. Out of 9 committee members, 4 members, including myself, provided some great ideas specific to several sections of the Charter, which prompted great discussions. Although at times it has been somewhat challenging keeping everyone on task, and our discussions may have been lengthy, which may have contributed to a longer completion time, at the end of the day, whether or not we agreed to disagree, the committee has worked very hard. And as our last meeting on June 14th, we have completed going through each and every section of the Charter, beginning to end, and voted to make several changes and modifications. I thank each and every member of the committee for their passion and contributions throughout this process. It is now in the hands of our law director, Mr. Butler, with a final rewrite and reviewed at our next meeting on Monday, July 10th at 5:30 p.m. before presented to you at the council. Additionally, I would like to thank Councilpersons Kathy Pucci, Stephen Coyle, Andy Selvers, and Kevin Tansky for consistently attending our meetings, and also thank you to Meg for coming on your team. The knowledge and information you shared with the committee during numerous discussions was quite helpful. Thank you to several members of the public who also faithfully attended from beginning, asked questions, and shared their thoughts. Also, I would like to thank Mr. Butler for his help and patience during many of our meetings, and for answering questions, providing explanations, and necessary information as it pertained to the legalities of certain sections of the Charter during our discussion on change. Another thank you to Finance Director Tom Raguse, who also took time out of his schedule to attend the meeting in order to provide information and insight on our discussion related to topics pertaining to finance in the current charter, as well as Mayor Van Kirk, who shared his thoughts regarding safety directive discussions. And last, but certainly not least, a big thank you to our Secretary, Mary Jo, who has been keeping our meetings minutes and tracking conversations, even while sometimes they become quite hectic, in addition to providing some history and knowledge on Brooklyn topics that also came up. In closing, I would ask that once the final rewrites have been approved and presented to council for your review, you will give your full support to the recommendations and suggestions presented by the Charter Review Committee and submit them to the voters for consideration on the November ballot. This will allow all residents in our community the opportunity to cast their votes and be heard on what they too may feel is best for Brooklyn while moving forward together along with our city leaders. Thank you.
Anybody else for public session? I'd just like to respond to Andrew about the community cleanups. We do, the locations I picked are entrances into our community as well as the community parks. I've had numerous discussions with, and Andy has as well, with our building department, trying to figure out how we can best hold businesses responsible. I know Sheets is a hot issue. I know Adolph Plaza, and it's an ongoing struggle. They're widely visited. It's not always business themselves, but people who come in and visit the business, and they can go out and pick it up. I mean, I've seen Adolph Plaza, some employees picking up, especially around Giant Eagle and numerous other businesses around Ridge Park Square. The businesses themselves trying to keep up, but you know, even when we do a cleanup, we'll go to the rec center, talk to the staff about the maintenance staff about picking it up, and then when we're on our way out, we already see a crash where we just did a community cleanup. So it is an ongoing battle, but it is something that I know we've had discussions with our business department on how do we, you know, help hold them accountable, but also make sure that each of us is kind of doing our part to make sure that we're a litter-free community, because it really does make it more inviting and just better community to be in, cleaner. So thank you for your comments, though. Anybody else in council?
Yes.
Any?
I want to just kind of piggyback off what Meg said. When they're, like with Starbucks and everything else, we've actually been trying to contact the businesses and get them involved. I believe
Starbucks is what other groups?
Starbucks on Ridge Road is actually coming out to a community cleanup in August.
So we're trying to get them involved. It's also not in those areas, but we'll also try to do some of the ramps on 480. That's only usually going to be myself and another individual, because we don't want people out there wandering around. So I understand your point, Liz, but it's also trying to get the focus. But it's a gradual growing process, and some of the businesses starting to buy into it more and more. We actually, the first year, had a donation of $200 to one of the businesses that built out Plaza. They were happy to see what we were doing, so they went towards supplies and equipment. It's baby steps.
With all due respect, some of our council people's comments, I disagree with you. And here's why. Mayor and Councilman Gucci brought up, this was in the making for 10 years. I've been in this project for months, apparently. That's the case. That makes my case stronger. Because now that we had just as much time when we shut down the project. So it wasn't done overtime, it wasn't done the day before. So if they had this much time, I don't want to hear it's the state, it's the county. Everybody, it's all taxpayers' money. The residents are right. I don't care what anybody says they are on target. We need to utilize tax dollars in a much better way. And we're not. Councilman Grover, I hear this all the time, patience. And I get it, patience. It's doing projects organized. I believe residents, taxpayers have to be heard since they are paying for these projects. They don't like status quo. They want change. And they should be heard. Councilwoman Schnapp, not about annoying. It's about changing the way we do projects and utilizing our taxes in a much better way. My opinion, I believe we should call meetings with the state, county, wherever these projects are with, and other cities, and have some input, and bring residents' comments to the table. Because it's getting to a point where they have much more common sense of what's going on because we live here. They don't live here. They're coming in, ripping it up, and leaving. They live here. They see. They understand. If I was to go back and tell all these residents, they called me about all this stuff, to give these comments of annoying and impatience, they've heard this for years. It's not acceptable. It's just not acceptable. And it just doesn't happen in our city. I drive 200 miles a day, it's happening everywhere. And when it comes to taxpayers' money, I believe it needs to be used in a much better manner than what we're doing. And we're not. It's easy to just say, it's annoying, it's patience, let it go. No, that's what we're getting paid for. We're getting paid for to fight. To fight when things are not wrong in the residents' eyes or in our eyes. To say something, to speak up. Not just go along with the project. If that's the case, you don't need us here. We're just going to go along, stamp it, and move on. No, we need to speak up. We need to come together, and if something is being done that ain't right, we need to come together, call a meeting with these construction companies or whoever's in charge at that time. Why are you doing it like this? Wouldn't it be better to do this? You had time to put it together. As for what council says and the mayor said, they had plenty of time. So why wasn't it more organized? You have emergency vehicles. They don't need these on-ramps closed. So if you have an accident getting eastbound onto 480, he's got to go all the way around. He can't come up this way and get to the accident, he's got to go all the way around. What if somebody was dying up there? He has to go all the way around. So the more we're shutting down the ramps. The idea is to shut it down, get it done, and get out of there. So it's not just annoying and patience for the residents. We have emergency vehicles that got to travel. And the less that our highways and roads are shut down, if we can condense some of these projects, the less that they're going to have to go around it. It could be somebody's life. That concludes my report.
May I be recognized?
Yes.
I don't know if anybody's given this any thought at all. It seems great. Do the ramp at the same time as the street. If they're working directly in front of the ramp is tore out. How are these vehicles going to get on the ramp to do their work? Are they going to go backwards? Are they going to go the wrong way on a highway to get to the ramp to work? I mean, sometimes it seems like the right thing, but it can't be done when there's construction right in front and that whole thing is tore out. Those trucks can't get there. You want to talk about more traffic? You're going to have all these trucks going down, these big construction trucks on top of the ones that are working on a ridge. I mean, sometimes it may seem possible, but we do have people that are a lot smarter than us and are engineers that do this for a living, and this has all been pre-planned for years ahead.
The answer is no. It's not true. I'll tell you why it's not true. The on-ramps on 130th was shut down 4 times. They couldn't get up to that project. So you know what they did? They went up and around and back right down into that ramp. Because they couldn't go both ways. They had both ways shut down. So John they didn't. So we can do it over there, and get it all done, and now they got out of it 3 or 4 times. They do it on the highway. How do they do it on the highway? They turn around the embankment, come the other way. If they're shutting it down one way, you have
to lock that off. There's gonna be more traffic.
There's ways around it. I've seen it, John. I've seen it when they want to do it. When they want to do it. When they want to get their project done, and they're up against the city, hounding on it, they get it done. There's ways to get things done if it's done in an organized manner. It's just taxes are going up. Get somebody here raising taxes. They're going up. Hey, everybody's taxes are going to go up again. We need to some way condense these projects down so we're using less tax money. That's all I'm saying. That's what the residents see. They see the residents, their taxes skyrocketing, but they think things that could be condensed down can be condensed down in some way so it doesn't cause us to use more money. That's all I'm saying. And I think if we look into it a little bit better, remember we can figure it out. There's other areas that figure it out.
Anybody else have council?
Are you ready?
Yes.
Just a couple quick things. I guess just a little bit of a response to what Councilman Tansky just mentioned is there's nobody up here who's complacent or who isn't bothered, when our residents are frustrated with traffic. And the whole reason that ODOT has moved up the repairs on the ramps is because the mayor contacted them. So I guess that's that. Just a couple comments, to answer a couple comments from the public, trying to go in order. I'll answer Mr. Slattery first, just from my perspective. First of all, you are the person who did keep those staffing issues in the forefront. And we appreciate that. For me, over the years, one of the very frustrating things has been when someone leaves our safety forces, there's always this long lag time after. Because depending if we have a list or not, and just the length of time that it takes to replace someone, that's always been a frustration for me. There has been a change in administration, and I think there's a different approach, as Mayor Van Kirk mentioned, to try and be more proactive. And in looking at how many officers we're going to lose, and I think when we discussed it, it takes about 5 years when they're on the street before they're fully, they're on the street, but it takes a number of years before they're kind of really up to speed where they need to be. So I'm glad we're moving forward with this, and just because I know people are going to ask, we had this presentation with the mayor, I asked are we going to take the same look at the fire department, because I think we have to, the mayor said he's going to be looking at all departments to see how we can be a little bit more proactive. Just to clarify the bike lanes on Memphis, Memphis is not striped for 4 lanes because there technically is not enough room for 4 lanes. So that's why, even though there is extra room on each side, it's not enough to legally have 4 lanes. So moving forward with the Memphis Road Diet, it wouldn't be one of those bike lanes that are those full lanes that you see on some other streets that have traveled both with bikes and cars. It would be the actual traditional bike lane, 1 lane in each direction, and then a turn lane in the middle. One of the questions I asked, because I agree, I think it's really dangerous when the cars are that close to the bikes, Mr. Sweeney. And one of my questions was, are we going to be able to have, like, whether it's delineators or something to be more protective of the bikes? And I don't think there's anything like that in the plan, Mr. Roman, or...
Not in the original concept, but it's being engineered now.
Okay. I think that's going to be important for us to take a look at, like what some options would be. And Mr. Clark, regarding the litter, you are 100% right. I've been trying to find some time to come and meet with our new building commissioner. And when I had some time, he was on vacation. I had asked him, the mayor told me. So that is number 1 on my list. We in this city have been lax for for way too long with these private businesses. Sheetz is by far the biggest offender. They do not have people out there picking up trash, and I realize that it's their customers. It's not the employees going out, but it is private property, and they are responsible to keep up their, with the trash. And of course, in that sensitive area where we have the creek, it blows in like all the tall grasses, and that is something that we have to get back to and hold our businesses more accountable. And I appreciate the efforts of the Keep Oakland Beautiful Committee, I do, but we should not, as a city, we should be enforcing our laws, and our businesses need to know that there's a standard and they're going to have to follow it. And your comment on the plain dealer, that is a naturalized area, so that was like that from the get-go. I think they cut it down like once a year, but they did that, Mr. Sweeney worked there. They did that from the get-go when it was first built, to have a more natural setting, and it helps with everything, the animals, the birds, everything. And one last thing, I didn't get the name of your street, I got the number, but I'm not sure where the city property is that's being cut by a private entity. What street are you on?
You get off, and it's directly across from, what is that side street, Fairway?
Oh, that's owned by West Street? Are you talking about between the two houses?
Yes.
That's not owned by the city. That's owned by West Street Conservation. Just so you're aware.
And they do provide a third-party contractor.
Yes, yeah. That is not owned by the city. Thank you.
One last thing for me, I'm usually not talkative. I actually met with Mr. Greer a month ago, prior to him going on vacation. Yeah, we're looking into getting a little bit more code enforcement, residential and business. I picked up legislation from Aurora and about 3 other cities where rules and the penalties started to become a little bit more stringent in enforcement. Just instead of a slap on the wrist. Have talked about it for a couple of years, and we kept on changing building commissioners, and now with Mr. Greer on board, he's definitely looking into it. So maybe some more remedies to solve those problems as well.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
To adjourn, Kevin Casey.
Yes.
Sue Grodick.
Yes.
And Ryan Sharkey.
Yes.
Stephen Coyle.
Yes.
Andy Silver.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.